G'day ladies and gentlemen, Duckville here. We've got a Zerg versus Terran here today. It is going to be on Merry-Go-Round. It is a it is a map that has been around for a little while. I haven't been a huge fan of this map, but whatever, doesn't really matter. We've got an interesting game here between these two players as I scratch my ear. Ow. Had to move my headset, sorry guys. Anyway, Zerg versus Terran. It is going to be on this map, which makes it a little bit weird because the particular bases sort of make this a little bit of an odd one. But let's talk about our players. Down at the southern side of the map as our red Zerg player here, it is QT Girlfriend. Or qtgf, but just call him Cutie. And top left hand side as our blue Terran player here. Neither of these players in like a BattleNet clan or anything like that, but this is Oswa. Oswa. I don't know what that means, or if it means anything. I don't know. People sometimes just choose random names and then just that's what they go with. But anyway, we'll be this Zerg versus Terran here, of course. So what we'll probably see on this matchup is pretty normal stuff. This is a thing that sometimes irks me a little bit about this matchup, is it tends to be quite it's generally very same across most matches you see. It's obviously very easy as a commentator to call out what's going to happen, but it does tend to be quite a similar sort of affair when it comes to ZvT and the way the TVZ plays out in itself as well. But we'll get our Terran is he? Wow, okay. Slightly different. There you go. That's something a little bit different. He's going to be going for a CC first on the low ground. Balls of Steel here. It's not necessarily a super risky thing compared to certain other plays, but it's something that you do need to be a little bit wary of from time to time, just because the odd pull will come out quickly, or someone will respond to it by getting some early economic action of their own going, and it looks as if we will. Oh, okay. He's gonna head straight over here to the third base and try and set that one up as quickly as possible. So we're gonna get a 3 hatch before pull from our Zerg and a CC first from our Terran. So after all me whining and bitching about how this particular matchup is never really different, we actually do get a different one. So pretty happy about that. Now, the map we're talking about is an interesting one because for a Zerg, as we can see if I try and fit all the bases together, these bases are quite intriguing because especially the third base is towards your opponent. If we're looking at, or especially this one, I'm actually really surprised he took this one. But if we look on the minimap, and I'll try and draw it here, is when you're expanding as a Zerg, you generally want to be going away from your opponent. So our Terran player is over here. We want to be going away from him, so across this way. So when you take a third on this map, normally you would take this one over here just because it's further away, but Cutie has decided to take this one instead. So playing it, I wouldn't call it a huge risk. I just call it a little bit different, and perhaps a little bit it exposes the base a little bit more because the base is over here. So all the Terran has to do is just wander through this middle bit here, as you can see, just a straight walk over here, and then you're at the third base, as opposed to if it was over here, where normally you would be just roaming through the middle of the map or sending a drop across to try and get that. So a little bit of an interesting decision there from Cutie. Oswa with his natural is all ready to go. The Overlord just escaping to the high ground from that Marine, and with the in fact, a third command center is going to be built straight away here by our Terran players. So loving a bit of economic action here. You don't get to see it as much as I'd like to. I love when players kind of play economically risky. I like to call it eco-cheese sometimes, which is something that, if you've watched my stream, I do it quite a lot in PvT. But Cutie is going to be doing a little bit of speedling action earlier on, just to make sure that we do have some defense available against any possible Hellion attacks that might be coming along. But I mean, the thing is, there is no factory yet. We've still only just gotten our gas coming in, and I mean, that still means that we're still at least another 30 seconds away from a factory being completed, let alone the reactor and any further Hellions that come after that. So no real issues at the moment for Cutie, building up the drones as swiftly as possible. We've got an SCV just pushing across. He's going to see that base and say, oh, okay, alright, we got a base right there. Perhaps I can do a particular timing attack, because whether you're going bio or mech, there are some certain timings where you can assault a Zerg's third and try and take it out, or even a fourth, actually. With mech, I suppose it's a little bit more of killing off the fourth, but you can do those kinds of things, and we'll see what our Terran is going to do. Third command center finished up. Our factory is also on the way. And things are, well, yeah, as we said. Oh, okay, he's going to go for mech. Triple factory just coming in. Qt's going to see this with an overload just scouting through it, the perfect time. Around about that's anywhere between sort of the 6:45 or 6:30. Sometimes people go in a little bit earlier, but normally 6:30 is the best time when you're against a normal sort of play. But against this sort of economic-based opening, you can go in a little bit later. So that's a nice timing there to get in there. Sees the 3 factories and will be aware that we're against some mech. So we'll have to see where Qt wants to go with this. The Roach Warren is just coming through. Our hatchery, our first hatchery, is switching into a lair, and we'll get a couple of Evo chambers as well. So what we will normally see here when a Zerg player, as a standard sort of affair, sees a mech-based play, and we've opened up really economically, is we'll try and get the tech really quickly. So that's why we can see that the lair is on the way. The 2 Evo chambers will start cranking out. I'm assuming it'll be +1 to missile, and carapace will be coming up as quickly as possible. Because once you see a Terran going mech, you do need to make the correct choices, because a lot of the time dealing with mech can be quite frustrating in this matchup. It's not. It depends how the opponent plays. I was talking about timing attacks before, and I personally don't really like doing timings as mech, just because I feel like playing a turtle style is a lot safer and a lot more viable than the pushing kind of styles that I see people do. But we'll see what happens, because yeah, it is an option. I'm not saying it's bad all the time to do a timing push with mech, but what are these drones? So get in there, you crazy kids. There we go. But yeah, I just kind of feel there's more viability in playing a little bit more of a turtle style mech in TVZ. So for our Zerg player, we just want to make sure that we do have a small group of forces out on the map. You want to be keeping an eye on the 3rd base in particular. If you can deny this as long as possible, that is quite a good idea. And interestingly, we will get melee coming out from Qt Girlfriend first up. So a little bit of a different style to what I thought was going to be coming out. 4th hatchery on the way. Infestation pit coming quickly as well, and that has now complete. We'll start up the locusts. We're going to get enduring locusts coming out as our first few swarm hosts just about to start up. So a lot of the time, what people love to do in this matchup is you will just get a lot of swarm hosts out, and you'll try and either block off the 3rd base, or you have to deny a 4th base. If a mech Terran player, especially if they're playing turtle style, gets to a 4th base, it can be quite difficult to deal with, because they will often be able to get towards their high level tech with lots of tanks with upgrades coming out. Thors will start popping out as well, and I'm a little bit, I don't know about this. Double armory, and they're not actually upgrading. Come on, Oswa, you can do better than that. But he will hopefully start up those upgrades pretty soon, because we really do need them. But anyway, so you go up to swarm posts and you try and, you know, push away the Terran from the 3rd base or the 4th base while you're taking lots of bases around the map. We see a 4th. I would love to see a 5th right now, as the first of the swarm posts are going to be popping out in a second here. But taking a lot of bases and preparing your economy is the key thing here, because it's a situation where you either have to use a lot of these free units, the swarm hosts of course, popping out their locusts, or you have to be trading with and just throwing around a lot of units. So sometimes what you'll see is a Zerg player will come in with drops, and they'll come in and harass the main base somehow, while also coming into the natural base as well, just trying to do what damage you can, while trying to limit the Terran from being as efficient as possible with their units. So setting up zones where, you know, you block off areas like this, setting up a planetary fortress or two to block out locusts is the best kind of play, I personally think. So you need to make that decision. Am I going to go massive amounts of swarm hosts to try and block out any bases, stop the Terran from getting a 4th, or am I going to do a little bit more harassment-based play? So for the moment, it looks as if Qt is going to be doing the swarm host option there. We can see +1 to missiles is on the way. Carapace level 2 is coming through, and Pneumatized Carapace. A few more upgrades for our Zerg player. We'd love to see the Hive really quickly. when you've got the bank for it, getting your hive really quickly is really good because it is awesome to have some Vipers out. And if you've ever seen Australian Zerg player Pig play against Mech, you'd see why. You'd see why I rant so much about getting Vipers out in this particular style of matchup, because you need to be using your Vipers to yank out Thors and tanks and you know, anything you can get your hands on, because the Terran fight is going to be based on trading as efficiently as possible, similarly to how Swarm Hosts work, where you're getting free units out to do damage. Of course, tanks, you know, as long as they're staying alive, they can just rip apart. Like, look at this, they will just tear apart all of these locusts that are coming across. Once a couple of planetaries are set up, they do it even better because they won't get shot at all. And so as a Zerg player, you want to be, you know, you want to be abducting as many of these tanks as possible. Make it cost inefficient for the Terran player to be playing mech by making sure that the tanks are dying, making sure that Thors are being picked up as much as possible, because Thors are quite strong. I don't favor them hugely in this matchup, in this kind of style, sorry, but they are quite useful to have. And as we can see, qtgf, this is something that I was going to point out as well, is that setting up lots of spore crawlers and static defense, whether it be both spores and spines, or at least you have to get spores out, just because you need to set up static defense in the positions where your swarm hosts are going to be moving to. And as you can see, we just saw a bit of clicking here, so we are going to have swarm hosts pushing their locusts across through the creep on this middle section of the map. And while this is all going on, loving this, picking up a 5th, a 6th, even, I mean, even jumping up and setting up a 7th. Just, you may not be mining off it straight away, but building up that kind of economic backbone, I guess is probably the best way to describe it, is one of the best ways to take advantage of the very slow and cumbersome style of mech, especially when it's being turtled. So, a few Mutalisks have now popped out. We had double Spires back in the base of QT being built up with upgrades coming out as well. Throwing around some mutas is also really cool. I do like when players just sort of mix things up a little. So you keep the Terrans stuck on 3 bases as long as possible. Get a few mutas out if you can, and then try and clean up any 4th base attempts that come out. And then you're pretty good, because that means that like, Terran mech can function off 3 bases, but it's heaps easier when you've got a 4th, because the end goal, generally I find, a lot of people seem to disagree with me, but I mean, and oddly it seems to be the people that don't play Terran that disagree with me, but I find that, wow, that was, everyone see those shadows just popping across there? Anyway, end game of Terran mech is that you want to be getting towards BCs, Ravens and Vikings. Particularly the Ravens, you want to favor a lot of Ravens, 15 plus Raven. There's another locust body. Where's this one going? Over there. Yeah, you want to be favoring Ravens in particular. Get, you know, 5, 6, maybe 7, but generally 5 or 6 is the best number to have of the BCs, and then just throw in quite a few Vikings as well, because that kind of army, the Sky Terran army, is very difficult to deal with. You've got Ravens for throwing out point defense drones to block attacks from those locusts and other sorts of units, especially mutas and corruptors. And then you've also got the Hunter Seeker missiles to drop down on the Swarm Hosts, which is, just by the way, that's why we see a lot of spores here, to block off Ravens getting in, or at least partially, because again, point defense drones are really good at blocking off spore crawler shots. And then you also get to see the Vikings obviously fending off the Corruptors and Mutas. And then the other thing is, of course, is the BCs they use for doing that powerful ground damage. You also need, you can use them to Yamato cannon down spore crawlers as well. If you want a good example of what I'm talking about, where you get this sort of long-term, wow, these mutas in a lot of trouble, getting shot down by the Thors. They've got 1-1, but they're not exactly getting a huge amount of damage, and I'm really disappointed in the upgrades here from Oswa. This is 1-1 at the 20-minute mark. You should at least be 2-2 by now. Was a little bit behind on those upgrades, but not too bad. What was I saying? Oh yeah, and so BCs, if you want a good example of seeing a good, really good Terran turtle player, go watch Jazinski's stream. He's just restarted streaming again, and he is really good at playing that late game phase where the combination of BC, Raven, and Viking really plays out its real power. So, just looking at the status of the game right now, we've got our Zerg player up on, what's that, 6 bases right now. as I mentioned, would love to see a 7th up in the corner or something like that. The muta count currently sitting at 35. We've got mutas with 1-1 at the moment. Their 2-2 is, well, we've got +2 to attack, so we don't have carapace being upgraded just yet. But a lot of swarm posts are also here in the middle of the map. There is a total of 20 of them busting out their little proteges. The little locusts are now just moving through into the 3rd base. Planetary fortresses are prepared here, but there's no tanks at the back. And while this is going on, these mutas are sneaking into a little bit of a sneaky spot just in the corner. Some SCVs are going to come across and try and repair the planetaries. But as a Terran, what you want to do, as we can see here, is set up a couple of planetaries, have the tanks behind them. And how this works, actually, just before we get into that, the mutas are now sweeping into the main base here, going to try and take out any of the tech that's here. Of course, because we don't really have much in terms of upgrades done, well, we've got 2-2 now for Oswa, but you can take out the armories, you can also take out the factories, and that would be beautiful for our Zerg player here. But the Vikings are now coming across. The Raven count is quite low, so he does need to work on that a little bit. But Vikings will fend off the mutas for now. There is a Thor or two that has come through as well. Big shots from the Thors. Little javelin missiles jumping on top of the mutas there. Drops a few Hunter Seekers. Will he get the shot off? It looks like yes, he will. Big hit on the mutas, not necessarily doing a huge amount of damage. The thing about mutas is that you actually need to kill them, otherwise it's just not worth it. All the while, of course, because some of our tanks had to move out of position, it looks as if the locusts were able to push into the 3rd base. Swarm host just moving about, and now we can see tanks shelling from the high ground. They're going to be able to clear out some of these the swarm hosts here. In fact, killing off a couple is pretty lucky, I guess, for our Terran player. But this is where your Vipers would be beautiful. Yank some of these guys off the cliff, bring them down here, say hello with some locusts, and then he has to rebuild. He has to rebuild those, either rebuild the tanks or build them or switch them into BCs or Ravens at this point, which is what you really would be wanting to do. So QT, I don't think we have any out on the map at the moment. No, there's no no Vipers at all. So he does need to. I would love to see him thinking about that. 38 mutas around on the map. These guys are going to try and get around and do some harassment. Some turrets are prepared at the 4th base, but as I mentioned, if a Terran gets to 4 bases, then things can start to get a little bit messy when you have to deal with mech, just because you're able to produce off a whole bunch of starports, make the Viking Raven transition, and get yourself into a good spot. Looks as if we will have these mutas flying through here. Lots of turrets were prepared, but the turrets are not really going to get a huge amount done. These mutas are bunched up. Are these guys going to get exploded? Yes, they do. All of these mutas being torn apart right now, and they all go down, not exactly getting a huge amount for that trade, but, well, you know, no big deal. Here's another 24 mutas on the tab here, as +3 to weapons is on the way, and carapace is also being researched right now. So, small mistake there from our Zerg player, but I mean, at this stage, it's okay. He's still got a bank. We've still got 1,000 minerals and 1,400 gas in the bank, so it's not as if that's a huge deal to reproduce some of this stuff. He's still threatening this 3rd base. It's not going to be a huge issue now that the 3rd is just about mined out, but as long as we can continue holding this 4th, and then also possibly pushing up here to a 5th base, Terran is actually, like, you know, you may be looking at this and thinking, wow, there's creep everywhere. There are bases almost everywhere for the Zerg player. You know, what's this Terran going to do? But this is the efficiency of mech. I still think that Oswa is actually in a pretty good spot right now. He does need to get his 3-3. We were talking about upgrades before, and I'm a little bit disappointed that our 3-3 is, still hasn't been restarted. At least getting one of those on the way would be good. But we need to also increase the Raven count. 3 Ravens is not enough at this point. You need to have enough to point defense drone and Hunter Seeker groups of Corruptors, or even coming in here and dropping down a few Hunter Seekers on these Swarm hosts. And then you can actually start to move into the late game in a stronger position. But having to deal with these mutas across the map is a really tough thing as the mech player. You need to get either a couple of Thors in position to deal with them, or just having a large fleet of Vikings roaming around trying to deal with this kind of thing. And it looks as if he will target down the planetary and finishes that off. Now dropping in to say hello, targets down a few of those Ravens. A few more Hunter Seekers are going to pop out. Huge hits. Huge hits. Bits of mutas flying everywhere. It is an absolute butchery over here with those Hunter Seekers, and that's what I was talking about. You can see the power of Hunter Seekers when they are actually in full effect. And as a few more tanks start to go down. But yeah, I kind of feel like just a few small things that could be worked on by both of our players. Number one is that Oswa could be getting his upgrades out, could be dropping a few Hunter Seekers out, because we should have had a lot more Raven action by this time. And then, of course, for our Zerg player, we'd love to see a few Vikings just abducting these tanks on the high ground here, taking them out of position, killing them off. Even grabbing a few of these tanks would be quite cool, as the locust count is continually quite high. Like, what is it? It's 42 locusts that are popping out every time, and they do a lot of damage. So, I mean, yeah, there's a few small things, but both players are still playing reasonably well. This is Masters, if I remember correctly, on the NA server. Muta's now once again going to drop in and say hello to the natural base. We'll see what happens this time, because there is only one Thor here. No Ravens about just at the moment. They're looking to fly back across, but the Thor, will he get a good shot off? Needs to take the shot. No, doesn't get it. So we can, you know, we're still building up the Muta count. This is the other tough thing about dealing with mech, is what do you actually get to deal with Ravens and Vikings and tanks and things. Like, apart from, as I said, using Vipers to trade the tanks efficiently, there's, you know, you can't Broodlord, because they just get annihilated because they're bad, and because they can't deal with this many Vikings. You can't go Corruptors to try and kill off these kinds of units, because, well, theoretically, if we had more Ravens, you should be able to point defense drone or Hunter Seeker down the Corruptors and big groups of air Zerg play. And then, you know, Ultras get torn apart by the tanks and the planetary fortresses and things like that. Wow, these Mutas not exactly doing the best of trades there. He takes out a couple of turrets and some SCVs, but perhaps could have got about that a little bit more smoothly. Workers killed is only at 32 for this entire game, which is quite an interesting little figure. So, as I was saying, it makes it difficult to try and deal with Mech Terran, and this is that stage. This is what I was talking about way earlier on, is getting those Vipers out early, because you just want to trade as much as possible with those tanks, make the Terran have to constantly use up their resources to build up tanks and redo planetary fortresses and things like that. Oh wow, the Swarm Host, a little bit out of position there. Happens from time to time. But looks like these Locusts will get a couple of good shots off, taking out 2 of the Thors, and then should be able to take care of a few of these turrets as well. You need that 7th base from QT at this stage, or 7th and 8th. Like, I mean, even just building the hatcheries. I mean, we've got 4,000 minerals. Need to get some of that done. One other thing that I forgot about for Oswa is that when you get to this stage and you're looking to transfer into Ravens and battlecruisers and things, is that having a build-up of Hellions with Blue Flame is also really underestimated, I think, when people play mech. Send them down here, kill off any outlying bases, kill off any extra drones or anything. If you can perhaps sneak up here, kill off a huge group of these drones that are mining in this space, then that's beautiful. You know, send them in Hellion mode, drive them around as quickly as possible, queue them up to switch back into Hellbat mode so that they can tear apart the base, and you're golden. But we will see big hits again from the Thors, just getting some beautiful shots off on those Mutas, and those Mutas are now gone again. QT gonna have to rebuild. In fact, yeah, is going back to the Muta tech yet again. As we were talking about, it's difficult to make a good mixture of units to deal with mech, just because it does have quite a few strong points that are tough to deal with. So really, there's quite another small mistake there from our Zerg player. Still no Vipers out on the map. Waiting for the Vipers. Need to get the Vipers. Is this a double drop of Thors? Are you serious? It was looking to double drop with these Thors, and they turn around and try and take care of the Mutas. I'm not sure there are enough of them to try and deal with this. A little bit of you know, whole position attacking here from QT. The reason why he's doing this is just to try and limit the amount of splash damage that the Thors do. As you can see, only a few of the Mutas were taken out there. You probably could have grouped them up a tiny bit more, but not to worry. Raven count is starting to slowly build up. We've currently got 6 out on the map. We'd love to see a few more than that, though. Hunter Seekers now being dropped down on these Swarm Hosts. This is what we should have been seeing a little bit earlier on. down go the Swarm Hosts. There's quite a few of them have been annihilated now. We can see the count has dropped down to 13. The 5th base here is mining quite nicely. As we can see from Oswa, he's perhaps looking to take the 6th down in the corner as well, but we'll have to see if he's able to do that. This turret that's been here for like 20 minutes is finally spotted and taken out. But yeah, we fall into this little bit of a lull here in the sort of, I guess it's pretty much late game at this point. But our Terran player able to mine away. You can see what I sort of mean when we talk about getting just even a couple of battle cruisers out to try and take out. You can just long distance Yamato, the spore crawlers, if you can slowly take them out. I know our Zerg player has a huge bank and he can just constantly remake them. But the kind of the aim of playing a turtle mech is just to constantly destroy anything your opponent has, take out the swarm host where possible, kill off big clumps of mutas where possible, and force the Zerg to have to constantly use their bank, because eventually, as I mentioned, it makes it really tough to actually deal with tanks and with Thors and particularly the Raven Viking mixture, just because they trade so efficiently. And I mean, without the BCs, it can get to a point where you have a lot of trouble taking care of spore crawlers, just because you can go in and drop the auto turrets down to deal with them, but they can be dealt with again by the swarm host. So kind of gets to this really weird spot in this particular matchup if you don't get at least a couple of BCs. But happy days, we do see Oswa picking up his +3 on his weapons and also his armor. You can see the game heart overlay having a little bit of trouble extending across there, partly because of my resolution, but partly because it wasn't built for that many upgrades. But the Viking Raven count currently sitting at 7 Ravens and 18 Vikings. It's a good amount of Vikings. I probably wouldn't go any further than that. I definitely would want to see the Raven count go higher though. It's not enough to just have 7. And we would like to see our Terran player dropping a couple more swarm hosts. I'm gonna try and get in there. Here's a point defense drone to take care of the spores. There you go. New Hunter Seekers being thrown out. It's 2, by the way. It's 2 Hunter Seekers to kill off a swarm host. There you go. Not counting splash damage, of course. So a few more swarm hosts are going down, and this is what I was talking about: having enough ravens to actually deal with the swarm host properly, to make the Zerg constantly have to rebuild. But we get our 7th and our 8th and even our 9th base here for QT Girlfriend. Just trying to make sure that there are a lot of hatcheries available. Is this? Oh wow. Okay. This I was talking about Hellbat harassment before. This is not exactly what you want to see. This is what happens when you go to the zoo and you tap on the window. The animals just sort of sit there and they're like, "Can we get out there?" And unfortunately, they can't. But the mutas again. Attempt number 3 to get into this 3rd base. Just denied there. There's so many mutas. It's like 32 mutas and just can't deal with that just because of the clumping and that splash damage. Hellbat's now being dropped in here on the 4th base, or the 3rd base I suppose, from many moons ago when this game first initially started. Unfortunately not able to get too much damage done. Just looking at the vision here for our Terran, he hasn't seen this base. This is where those Hellbats would be quite handy. He's got 9,000 minerals. And there is a bit of supply. You can probably build, what's that? That's like 10 or just under 10 Hellbats. It would be pretty cool to have, but just to harass that base, if they had some flame, that'd be even awesome. Even more awesome. Dropping down a few of those auto turrets to try and deal with the spore crawlers there. HSMs do not get off, unfortunately. The Hunter Seekers are not fast enough to keep up with mutas if the mutas are pulled out straight away. That's why I generally like to have point defense drones used against mutas instead of the Hunter Seekers, just because it's tough to actually get a good shot off. We have seen a couple from Oswa. He has been able to clear out a couple of big packs of mutas with Hunter Seekers, but that was just a little bit lucky. I think QT was not properly seeing what was happening, and now we can see a few of these Vipers are finally out on the field. So we've got tanks up for grabs. You can see these guys here can be pulled out. You'd probably want to pull them into the range of the locusts that are just across to the side. And if possible, maybe even throw out an abduct on a Raven or something, but you have to be really careful. You have to be so careful. The Vipers cost a lot. And there are so many Vikings. Wow. So the range of Abduct is 9, if I remember correctly. And the range of Vikings is also 9. So you can, if you pre-target a Viking or a Raven or something to try and abduct it out of position, then you can actually get them and still possibly get away. It's not 100% if I remember correctly, but you can do it. This is the thing though, is that it would have been nice to have the Vikings out a little bit earlier. And down goes one, down goes another, and possibly a third. No, not able to grab that one. But this game is now moved into odd territory, where we have a lot of minerals available for our Terran player, and he now has a lot of Ravens as well. The big clump of mutas flying through to try and pick off some of the Ravens here. You always want to try and take the Ravens before the Vikings if you can, but the problem lies in that there are so many Vikings and a lot of auto turrets are now being thrown down on the ground to clear out some of this defense in the middle. And again, you may be thinking, well, you know, hey, our Zerg is on like 9 bases or whatever. Surely he's in a good spot. This is still a little bit of a troubling position. I'm still unsure of how to call this, just because, as I said, I'm a huge fan of seeing BCs at this stage, just to take care of spore crawlers a little bit easier. And also, we haven't had the best of trades for our Zerg player here. The Swarm Posts have been doing their job, which is to hold back some of the bases and at least try and take some of them out. But he hasn't been killing off any of the bases, so this is why we've gotten to this stage where Ravens are popping out. We're going to be up to 16 Ravens here in a second, which is a great number to have. The mutas, however, have found a little bit of a sweet spot down in the bottom of the map. 2 Thors are here. Will they be able to deal with those mutas? It looks as if they will take out quite a lot of the mutas, or a few of them do go down. The turrets are doing a good job here as well, but the mutas, too many in the end there, and our Terran player is going to have no luck picking up that 6th base just as of yet. But Ravens are going to come through. Will they get some shots off, taking out 1, 2, 3 of the mutas? So many Ravens. This is what you want to see. As I said, I would have liked to have seen this a little bit earlier, but I'm glad he's finally gotten there. Auto turrets again to clear out the space. Luckily, QT does have these extra bases out here. Some static defense would be quite nice. Just a few spore crawlers and then some spines as well to deal with any auto turrets that are dropped down. But hasn't really done too much of that at all. Actually, we don't really have any static defense at some of these bases, but not to worry. The 2 planetaries that were set up here at the 5th base have now been taken out. The auto turrets slowly dealing with the spore crawlers at this bottom edge of the map. But Oswa, well, he's done a really good job to hold it together. As I said, there were a couple of times there where he probably should have, you know, he probably could have been taken advantage of, but unfortunately there were no Vipers out and things like that, so he's been able to get away pretty clean with picking up a 4th and now 5th base. If he can get the 6th, I'd say he's still in this with a pretty damn good shot. Just needs to be very careful with his Ravens, but there are so many mutas now popping out again. We've got 26 already out on the map, going to take that total to 34 in a small time. Some Hellions have finally joined up with the rest of the forces on the map. But 6th base now done. A couple of Thors here. A tank or 2 is always good. And Raven Viking pushing through the middle of the map, looking to clean out a couple of these creep tumors. If we can get some PDDs to block the spore crawlers here and then drop down a whole bunch of Hunter Seekers, that would be perfect for our Terran player here. What happened? Oh, there they are. I was like, where are the rest of the mutas? Because there was I could only see 3, and I was wondering where they all went. But as you can see, the Terran player now starting to push up here. Oswa is looking to clear out this base. If you can clear out the mining bases, then that's perfect. We can see, oh wow, the mutas not having the best of times here. A Thor and a few more also just shooting them down as he loses quite a lot of the mutas. That's now down to 24 yet again. Our Terran player able to just randomly pick up some big kills here on these mutas, which is really good. Why are these units being shot at? They should not be being shot at. As Oswa again is looking to try and clear out this bottom edge of the map, because this is where a lot of the mining is going to be happening. Apart from these bases, there should be Hellions coming up here. Again, a little bit... I think that it would be nice to have that. It's a small thing to change in the gameplay here for Oswa. He's certainly got the money for it. He's certainly got the supply for some more Hellions as well. Wouldn't mind, it's not the greatest idea at this stage. But QT now starting to get a little bit mined out. Lost quite a lot of his gas income just because of having to rebuild some of those mutas. We can see that these bases up here at the top are still good to go, but not mining them 100% efficiently just yet. Now this Raven Viking fleet moving through the southern portion of the map, trying to kill off some of these spore crawlers here. The muta count has been rejuvenated, back up to 33. Is it enough? We can see the Locust pushing forwards, clearing the way, plowing the road for these mutas to come through and try and clear out some of the mech units. It looks as if Oswa again is now just coming through, dropping down some Hunter Seekers. Good amounts of damage going to be done here. He should clear out quite a few of them. Yep, takes out quite a lot. The mutas again just trying to fight with the Vikings, but when there's a point defense drone down, you can't, just because all those shots get blocked off. And one of these Vikings decided he wanted to be a ground warrior, but had to change that plan. Mutas getting caught out by the wall of turrets here at the 4th base, that base that has been there for quite a long time. As Oswa, I don't know, man. I would like, as I said, I would like to see him repairing some of these units here. We would also love to see some Hellions coming up here to take care of the drones. These 3 bases have to be assaulted at some point here. Otherwise, you know, it's going to be tough because at the moment, QT sitting on 10,000 minerals is able to rebuild some of what he has. He just needs that gas to continue coming in. But if the gas gets blocked, puts him in a good spot. 6 base is going to be taken out here. Small issue there for our Terran player that he won't be able to rebuild as much as he'd like to. Muta's being taken out. We can see a Queen and a few Swarm Hosts just moving into position here outside this base. And I think with this base gone, it is going to be a struggle for Oswa just because he hasn't been able to stop his opponent from mining gas at any point. It's not over though. That's the thing. It's not actually over. Like, that's the tough thing about commentating when someone does turtle mech like this and gets up to Raven Viking, is that there could be, there you go, there still could be a rejuvenation of the Terran forces, and the game is certainly not done just because of the efficiency of having energy-based units when it comes to the end of the game. So lots of these drones finally being taken out here. Beautiful work by our Terran player. Oswa is now doing a lot of work, also flying here into the base and dropping down a few of those auto turrets. We can see that he's also going to be able to cap off this base as well. But the trade is on in a way. It's a very slow trade, but it is on with our Zerg player, qtgf, now moving through, trying to deny these Hellions' ability to get out of base. And if he can do that, that'd be quite nice. If he can get up in towards the production facilities, that would be perfect here for him as well, because he has lost a lot of his gas mining. And I would say things are going to get extremely close here. So we were talking about the energy efficient units, kind of like your electricity bill. You really want your things to be energy efficient, not only for the environment, but it can be a little bit cheaper for you in some cases. So having these Ravens out, this is why we were talking about having a lot of Ravens out, like 15 plus at this point of the game, just because the damage that is being done by energy. It's not actually being done by cost or anything like that. So it's similar to how the Swarm Hosts work. Losing some of these units here. I don't like how he's moving through here. Is he gonna... Please don't lose Ravens, just do a couple of spores. There we go. Muta's now just moving off to the side, trying to get into a good position. These Hellions are on the way down, looking to get inside and perhaps clean off a couple of these bases here. But the Swarm Host once again on the move. As the Mutas have retreated out of the main base, he knew that his opponent was sending in some units to get in here and do some damage. Hellbats will be protecting this for the moment. But now the Swarm Hosts are coming up towards the top edge of the map. This is, you know... I don't know if he actually knows that that base is there, but he's going to be in a good position to stop it. Hellions again getting some work done, but they are going to be taken down by these Mutas, continuing to roam around, and the Mutas have not been stopped for quite a long time. As qtgf is moving up into position, oddly because of the Sim City here, those Locusts were not able to get their maximum damage. But like, Oswa needs to get in here and drop down some of these the Hunter Seekers if he has the energy for it, does he? Yeah, he does. He's got heaps of energy. Should be using it on those Swarm Hosts at this stage. Looks as if the Hellbats have found the position they need to attack here. They will be taken out. More Hellbats down at the bottom right-hand side of that. This is what I would have loved to have seen a lot earlier on in the game. It's a little bit... it could be a little bit too late now. As I said, I'm still not exactly sure how this game is going to go, just because things can be quite odd when there are energy-based units out on the map. But lots of mutas still present, as we can see, 31 on the map at this stage. But no real mining for our Zerg player, so he's got to be a little bit worried about that kind of thing. But he still has these Swarm Hosts doing work. Again, I'm a little bit... I just find it weird that that Oswa hasn't come across to deal with this, but he will find them here in a second. He needs to get these guys out of the picture. We'll see if this actually works. He does get a couple of them. Nicely done. Takes out a few. It's worth bearing in mind, of course, a Swarm Host that is burrowed, when you hunt a secret, it cannot get away. But a Swarm Host that is actually unburrowed still just has enough time to get away from a Hunter Seeker. So just keep that in mind, kids, when you're playing this yourself at home. 18 Swarm Hosts out on the map, 31 mutas. We also have 35 Zerglings also just scampering about the map, trying to do some work, and some more Hunter Seekers. There you go. Takes out some of these Swarm Hosts. Now, this brings us to a very interesting spot, because Lings are obviously not going to do very well against not only Hellbats, but also against the Ravens, because Lings can't jump. So we're moving into this odd spot where we have, what, 2 floating buildings available for Oswa? And, I mean, this is going to be tough. This is going to be dependent on the muta control, and then also the usage of point defense drones or Hunter Seekers, because I think what's going to happen here, I've seen this happen time and time again when we get to this stage of the game, is that the Zerg player, the Terran player is going to lift up the buildings. We've already got a starport that's out in the corner of the map, but bringing the buildings along with the rest of the fleet is pretty much what's going to happen here. So QT has to, if he can, try and get his mining back up and operational, because this base has barely been touched. Maybe if we can even get across here and set up another base, that would also be quite cool. We already have this one. Oh wow, there's a Widow mine here. Oh no. Oh no, look where these guys are clicked onto. Oh, luckily, the Widow mine is not going to get a shot off in time. Oh wow, could you imagine if it had have actually just hit that big clump of drones? That would have been insane. But yeah, I mean, this is that point where I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lift, and at this point, Oswa, like I said, this would be cool. Where if you had some BCs, QT's going to find some of the buildings here, finds a starport and a CC. Lings are also just looking around, trying to find any outlying bases. They'll find a couple of Hellbats in here and should be able to kill them off. Or maybe not. Yep, should be able to get them. There you go. Oh, that's pretty good, but not that good. And there is the lift. So Oswa has decided he needs to roam around and kill this off. The problem that we have is that with no BCs, you can't Yamato any static defense, and this means that you also have to use energy to deal with any spore crawlers that you find, because the spore crawlers, of course, can only be killed by landed Vikings, which you don't want to do, or auto turrets. And auto turrets, I just don't like auto turrets against spores, so GG so far. So what you want to do also, just I suppose as a Zerg, by the way, is you want to have some Swarm Hosts protecting just sort of like a main position, like we were talking about. If there's no BCs, the only way the Terran is going to be able to kill you is by dropping auto turrets, but auto turrets just get torn apart by locusts, of course, so just keeping that in mind. And I mean, QT's now mining off this base, so this is pretty much done, I'd say, just because of the lack of Vikings. And I mean, there could have been some harassment earlier on in when we saw our Terran player just sort of pushing down across across this side of the map. He was harassing these areas over here, but at the same time should have really been trying to pick off these bases up the top with Hellbats. But I think this is all done and dusted for Oswa. I mean, he can certainly give it a shot. It would probably take like another hour or so to actually get himself back into a good spot in this game, but it's just not going to happen. It's pretty much 99% not going to happen. Muta's now just coming across. They're going to be looking to snipe off the buildings if possible. He's going to build even a few more Mutas are now coming out here. 35 out on the map in total. A few more will be added to the production tab. Muta's just looking forwards. You can see he's just sending a few scouting ahead just to see if he can find where the Vikings are. You don't want to lose all of those units because then that could certainly turn things. That could be quite troublesome. Oswa. Surely he can see those Mutas at the back there, but the Mutas will actually find the target and they will take out the starport. That is one dead starport, maybe. Widowmine. Sorry, not Widowmine. Hunter Seeker being dropped out and the starport is gone. We've got another CC being built up in the corner here. No vision of that at the moment. Needs to keep... Oh no! He's just trading now. He's just going to try and trade. We can see Hunter Seekers popping out, but as I said before, Mutas are very, very, very agile, and it means they can get away from Hunter Seekers quite easily. But I don't know. I think at this stage you could probably just go for the CC and just try and kill it off. Oh wow! Tries to drop a mule to repair, but unfortunately that gets killed off by the Locust. And yeah, this will probably be it here. Takes down a few Ravens, which is quite nice. Again, dud Hunter Seekers. Mining off these bases in the corner here, and also has set up hatcheries up towards the top right hand side of the map. But yeah, Oswa, his day is done, I guess you could say, just because he's gonna have a lot of trouble trying to deal with these Mutas. Also, just a small thing, on the control, having the Ravens and the Vikings in the same group is okay, but having the Ravens on a separate group by themselves is also really good, because you can see when these clusters of units move out, you get the Ravens that actually move forwards a little bit quicker, and that can cause all sorts of trouble, and you can have them being picked off. So that does also worry me here. So the command center up in the corner has been finished off, but there is another one that's being built. The Mutas will find one, takes out the SCV, and that's the last SCV here for our Terran player. But delaying the inevitable, I guess, Oswa at this point. Like I said, I can think he could do it if QT was to screw up and lose all the Mutas and then, you know, not be able to rebuild anything. But it's a monumental screw up if you were to do that. So we can see a few more drones are being built up. We're back up to 42 drones, a little bit more of a nicer amount of drones out on the map. The Vikings need to stay within range of that CC, and now, as we can see, the Mutas are able to find one of the command centers and take one out. There is still one remaining. They're very slow. You've got to make sure you're protecting them at this stage if you are going to attempt a fight back here. But it looks as if no. So that's what I was talking about with those Ravens, just flying out ahead of everything else. Has a little bit of vision here to see where those command centers are, or where the command center is. Auto turrets and point defense drones being used to take out this position. A few swarm hosts go down off to the side. Yeah, it's a weird spot, because this is what I was talking about. You can do it. You can get in here and try and take out, you know, the buildings and such with auto turrets. But you have to be careful of covering the CC, and you have to be careful of how you use your energy. You have to have some point defense drones available, just in case the Mutas decide to try and come through and just dive straight on top of the CC. But some good auto turret work here from our Terran player. Like I said, this is that 1% coming into effect. The auto turrets and the ability to just control various areas of the map is the big factor here. But, you know, as we look, this base, is he gonna... I wonder if he's gonna try and, like, land the CC and then try... Can he... Oh, he can't even build... No, never mind me. He can't even build an SCV just because he's supply blocked at the moment. And caught out of position yet again. A little bit too far away from the CC. That is going to be the end of Oswa. Did a good job trying to make that work. Wow, and a post-match Hunter Seeker as a little bit of a cheerio to qtgf. The qtgf wins that game, and that after a very long, very interesting little mid-game, especially where the players were, there was a couple of small things, but they did really well regardless of playing an interesting long macro game style here on Merry-Go-Round. Hope you all enjoyed the match and maybe learnt a few things. If there's anything you wanted to ask me as well, please feel free to post, or if there's anything I screwed up, make sure you post in the comments and I'll say hello to you as well there. Catch you all next time.